Headquartered in Ann Arbor, Michigan, Eversight has been restoring sight since 1947, and its impact is global. I'm Lucy Ann Lance. Joining me on Community Cares is Diane Hollingsworth, President and CEO of Eversight. Eversight is a global nonprofit eye bank network. How does it work, Diane?
Sure. Thanks for having me, by the way. We started out as a local eye bank that was providing sight in our local area. We had a location in Michigan, Illinois, New Jersey, Connecticut, Cleveland, and South Korea. But we joined forces together because we felt that we could do more together. We're curing blindness, corneal blindness, locally, but also worldwide. We saw that the need was so great globally that we really wanted to combine forces and really expand our scope beyond just local.
What is the cornea, and explain what this particular type of blindness is?
Okay, so the cornea is the very clear dime-sized piece of tissue that's in the front of your eye, and it allows light to pass through into the eye. So it's the window into the eye. And 10% of blinding eye conditions can be cured through a corneal transplant.
That's amazing. So this is very specific, and I understand that in the U.S., you don't have to wait to get a corneal transplant anymore, right?
Yes, when we started, there was a long wait list, and surgeons would look through, back in the day, would look through their index cards and decide which patient should get that cornea. Now they can schedule the transplant. And that's really because things have progressed technology-wise, but also that more people have been willing to be a donor of their tissue upon their death.
And that story is a little bit different globally, though, isn't it?
Yes, 50% of people worldwide do not have access to eye care, and specifically corneal care. There's 12 million people worldwide that are in need of it, could have sight through a corneal transplant.
Eversight collaborates with a lot of different people, a lot of different organizations. Tell us about some of those and how you work with them.
So in each area, there's also an organ procurement organization, OPO. Here in Michigan, it's Gift of Life, and they're a wonderful organization. So when someone passes away in a hospital setting, there's a call made to Gift of Life, and they triage that to see if that person could be an organ, tissue, or eye donor. If they're able to be an eye donor, then it's passed on to us. So they have the expertise in the organ side and then other tissue side, and we have the expertise in the eye side. So we work very collaboratively.
Are there other organizations as well that you partner with, especially to do the global work you do?
Yes, well, we have partnerships across the world, different eye banks, different health organizations and things across the world to make this all happen. In addition, 10% of blinding eye conditions can be cured through corneal transplant, but what about the other 90%? So when we have tissue that has its diseased tissue, we can take that diseased tissue and match it up with researchers that are researching that blinding eye condition. So things like macular degeneration and others, we're helping to provide cures for that as well. So that's a big part of our partnership and relationship.
So you're not just restoring sight, which is miraculous in and of itself, but you're also working on the research and preventing blindness in the first place?
Absolutely.
We're talking with Diane Hollingsworth, President and CEO of Eversight, again, based right here in Ann Arbor. So it goes all the way back to 1947. How did your organization actually start back in those early days?
Well, it's an interesting story, actually. There's two surgeons that were twin brothers, one in Illinois and one in Michigan, and they were both corneal transplant surgeons, and they really saw this need and wanted to make it happen. So they actually collectively got together, and one started an eye bank in Illinois and one started one in Michigan, and that's how we collaborated because they really saw the need. In addition, and another one of our partners are Lions Clubs, because Lions Clubs are committed to helping with sight and hearing. And so the Lions Clubs were very, very formidable in helping to develop eye banks across the country, actually, and now across the world.
Obviously, your work really, when you think about it, the generosity of eye donors and their families who give the gift of sight, such a critical component of this, but also all those individuals that you just mentioned that work towards this and your donors as well. How is this funded? And let's talk a little bit about your organization overall in regards to what it takes to make all of this happen.
Well, funding is always an issue, but we have very, very many generous donors. financial donors that want to help us through that process. But what happens is we call it the circle of giving. So when someone has put on their driver's license, we always suggest make sure you put on your driver's license, see that heart on the Michigan driver's license that you want to be a donor. But if someone passes away, they are screened to see if they can be a donor, and they see if they're on the registry, or we ask a family member for authorization. We do a very thorough check to make sure that this person can be a donor, that they have the health history and things that allow it. And you're 10 times more likely to be a cornea donor. So many people think, well, I can't be an organ donor because I have cancer or something that's going to preclude that. But since the tissue is avascular, you can still be a cornea donor. And so people are very excited about that. But once the case has been cleared, we dispatch a technician. We're 24/7, 365 days a year, and go out to recover that tissue. It's a very dignified process. And a loved one can still have a regular funeral and all of those kinds of things. We bring the tissue back to our office. We evaluate it to make sure that it's safe for transplant. We do blood testing. We do everything we can to make sure that that tissue is safe for transplant. And then we have to process that tissue to the surgeon's specification and get it back out to the surgeon for transplant within a few days. So it's a very meticulous process in order to provide that safe transplant for our recipients.
And does that transplantation have to happen within the few days once it has been procured?
It used to be just a few days, but there has now been a technology that allows us to preserve it up to 14 days. But most surgeons want that tissue within a few days to have it transplanted.
And Eversight's impact, just this last year alone, what has that been like, both here in Michigan and globally?
So here in Michigan, over 1,700 people got the gift of sight. Worldwide, our global impact, over 7,700 have been given the gift of sight. This is all made possible through donors and their families. So, there's been many, many donors that have had to come about in order to make this happen. We also had over 3,900 tissue placed with those researchers to cure other blinding eye conditions. So a lot goes on here in our office.
And also surgeons and healthcare professionals getting trained in this as well through Eversight's work?
Training is a big part of what we do. We're out every day in surgeons' office, surgeon coordinators, and helping them with the latest techniques so that they can be the best that they can be for their patients.
Are we getting better with signing that card, that driver's license, stating that we would like to be a donor?
Very much so. I've been with the company for 12 years. In that time, I've seen the list grow and grow and grow. And I've seen, even if you haven't signed the registry, I've seen attitudes change very much more pro-donation. And it's been a miracle, but we still work really hard to grow that because we want everyone to say yes. It was hard at first to work with donor families. And then I realized that they've gone through something so tragic, and yet they find some glimmer of hope, something positive that came out of something so tragic. And so it's been so great to work with the donor families to help them have that one glimmer of positive out of something so tragic.
And to have their loved one lived on through the sight of someone who otherwise wouldn't be able to see. It is pretty incredible when you think about it. Diane Hollingsworth, President and CEO of Eversight. The problems that happen with a cornea, why does someone start to go blind or lose their sight? Why does that happen? Do we know what is behind that?
Yes, there's many different diseases. One of the top two, one is called keratoconus, and it's at the front of your eye or cornea of your eye. It takes a cone shape to it, and it distorts your vision. So that's one thing. There's also Fuchs dystrophy, which causes cloudiness in the front, so it doesn't allow the light to pass through. But then there's many other things like chemical burn or a firecracker incident or something that damages the surface of the eye that needs to be corrected as well. So there are many different things, but thankfully through transplant, we can help with all of those.
And Diane, like with other transplants, does one have to be a match? And does that have to be a perfect match?
No, there's no matching with corneas because it's avascular, so we don't have to have that matching. I'll let you know that I'm a kidney transplant recipient. So I've had a kidney transplant for 30 years.
Wow.
And so it was a very intricate process to go through the matching process. So it's really amazing to see with corneas that doesn't have to happen, which is what has also allowed us to minimize the wait lists over the years.
What would you like to say to someone who maybe is contemplating becoming a donor in this way and signing that driver's license card?
Well, one thing I'd really like to say is that it really helps to save others, and you're doing something amazing for someone upon your death. And I get a lot of people saying to me, "Oh, you don't want my eyes. I have poor eyesight." But the reality is that many sight issues are not related to your cornea. I have a mother who told me a story that her daughter was blind, and on her death, she was able to provide sight to someone else because her blinding eye condition was not her cornea. And so the mother said, my daughter would be so excited to know that she was blind, but yet upon her death, she was able to provide someone else sight. So I just think
Wow.
it's an amazing thing to do.
How impactful, incredible. For more information, you can go online to eversightvision.org/give. And you can find out how you can support Eversight's mission today with a financial contribution. eversightvision.org/give. Diane Hollingsworth, Eversight President and CEO, restoring sight and preventing blindness through donation, transplantation, and research. That is Eversight. Our thanks to Diane Hollingsworth with Eversight. And again, learn more and find out how you can help this important mission by visiting eversightvision.org. I'm Lucy Ann Lance, and this is Community Cares.